Welcome to a new episode of Cheaters Always Cheat. Like, subscribe, and share to stay connected.
I'm a 35-year-old guy, and my wife is 33. We've been together for 15 years, married for 12, and we were high school sweethearts. We have 3 amazing and healthy kids. My wife grew up in a very strict Christian household, where closeness was considered taboo and something you saved for marriage. So, our wedding night was the first time she ever had closeness. For the most part, our marriage has been healthy. Or, at least that's what I believed. We always made sure to communicate and listen to each other. Due to my job, I have to work away from home every other week. Both of us have good jobs and are financially stable. Once we decided we didn't want any more kids, we discussed the idea of getting implants for my wife, since her body went through significant changes after giving birth. Eventually, we went ahead with the surgery, and it really helped boost my wife's confidence. I've always been into fitness and going to the gym, so we bought some workout equipment for our home, and she started using it. My wife made incredible progress with her fitness journey, and she wanted to share it with others by creating an Instagram fitness page. She discussed this idea with me, and I expressed my concerns about the potential negative attention it could attract. However, in the end, I decided to support her new hobby. One day, when I came home from work, which happened to be on International Women's Day, my wife was crying and told me she needed to show me something. She received a candid picture of herself in a bikini, which someone had sent her, claiming they found it on an AXACADEX website. It turned out they had used a special app to create the image. Seeing how much it hurt, my wife shattered me inside. We discussed the possibility of deleting her Instagram account, but she wasn't willing to do that, just yet. In the following months, my wife's Instagram posts shifted from being helpful and documenting her fitness journey to focusing more on showcasing her body with revealing clothing. In August 2021, I had my own health concerns as I experienced pain in my left testicle that persisted for 2 months. I visited the doctor multiple times and underwent an ultrasound, which thankfully ruled out cancer. It was a huge relief for me. However, during this time, I noticed my wife becoming emotionally distant, and I was trying to understand the reason behind it. By October, I was still struggling with a significant decrease in my desire of closeness and overall motivation in life. Concerned about this, I got tested for low testosterone, and the results came back well below the average range for low normal levels. The doctor advised that they needed a second test before considering hormone replacement therapy. In November, the results of the second test showed my testosterone levels at the lower end of the normal range, which meant they couldn't proceed with treatment. They assured me that I was fine, but suggested antidepressants as an alternative, which I declined. That week, I undergo another blood test at a hormone replacement clinic and schedule a consultation for early January. In early December 2021, my wife experiences the loss of her uncle and grandmother within a span of 7 days. It's a significant and heartbreaking loss for our family. I decide to come home early from work and take additional time off to support my wife because she is struggling immensely. It's really tough for me to go back to work after those 2 weeks, knowing that my wife is still grieving such a profound loss. January 2022 arrives, and I receive approval for my hormone replacement therapy. I take my first shot of testosterone on January 13th. Just 2 weeks later, I already feel a remarkable difference. We go on a 2-week trip to Mexico, and I'm enjoying every moment with our children. My wife expresses how amazed she is by the changes she's seen in me within a mere 3 weeks. She tells me I'm a fantastic dad and husband, rating me 10/10. A few weeks later, while at work, I stumble upon articles about emotionally distant spouses and midlife crises. I send her those links, and she agrees that they resonate with her, although she's not entirely sure why. Then I come across an article listing the top 25 signs that your wife is having an affair. As I read through it, I'm shocked to discover that, in my opinion, my wife exhibits 22 out of the 25 signs. I decide that I need to confront her about this, but I'll wait until I'm home to do so. March 10th, the day everything changed. We went on a date night, and honestly, it was a great time. I sat her down and explained that I wanted to talk for 15 minutes without interruption, and she could respond afterward. I read her the list of the top 25 signs, and she seemed surprised, saying she couldn't believe I thought some of those applied to her. I reassured her that this was a safe space for her to open up and let out anything that had been bothering her. I initially suspected it might have been a drunken one-night stand from the summer. Tears started flowing, and there was a long silence before she finally confessed that she had been having an online affair through Instagram from September to December. She admitted to sharing explicit content with another man who lives overseas. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but at that moment, I thought we could work through it fairly quickly and move on. I then asked if there was anything else she needed to tell me, urging her to be completely honest. She responded by saying that this revelation was going to devastate us, and broke down, crying even harder. Several minutes passed without her saying a word, and I braced myself for the worst. Finally, she told me that she was having an affair with someone she met on Instagram, and it started just a week after her grandmother's funeral, right around the time I had taken extra time off work to be with her. She initially claimed it was only a few times, and that the affair ended in January. However, I soon realized that it's common for only partial truths to be revealed in order to minimize the damage and consequences of the affair. After days of intense and non-stop conversations, without getting any sleep, all the details started to emerge. It became clear that the affair was still very much alive and active until the night I confronted her about it. They exchanged thousands of text messages and had an average of 4 hours of phone calls every day. They would meet in various locations, such as random parking lots, the back of a truck, hotels, the affair partner's home, and even our own home. The affair partner spent the night while I was away at work. There were 11 confirmed instances within a span of 2.5 months, but it could be as high as 15, 20 times since she couldn't remember all the dates. She would tell me she was going to the gym, but in reality, she was meeting him in a parking lot. It's important to note that she has an IUD, so they didn't use any form of protection. I asked her to gather her belongings and move out. It was an incredibly difficult week for our children, perhaps one of the worst they've ever experienced. Today, both of us are attending individual counseling, and we have our first session with a marriage counselor scheduled for next week. Initially, she had already given up on our marriage and believed that divorce was the only path forward. Cheating is never justified until my hormone replacement therapy miraculously turned things around. This intensified her feelings of guilt and shame for what she had done. She started her personal counseling while the affair was still ongoing. She hasn't had any contact with the affair partner since March 18th. She deeply regrets her actions, feels remorseful, and is willing to do whatever it takes to make our relationship work. She has returned to the house. She has undergone tests for Estes HIV and pregnancy. However, she is hesitant to engage in closeness or even kiss me, and through our open discussions, she has admitted that she's finding it extremely difficult to overcome her feelings and withdraw from the affair. The affair partner, who is 33 years old, has no assets, struggles to hold a job, and lives in an apartment with his mom. Now, let's address my needs. I don't want to be a pushover in this situation. I also don't want to pursue reconciliation, just for the sake of our children. Update. A lot has happened since my last post in mid-March. Looking back, I wish I had taken the advice of those who reached out and genuinely cared. The most difficult part is coming to terms with the fact that everything is lost, and unfortunately, I had to learn it the hard way due to my own actions. We attempted to reconcile from mid-March, when I let her back into the house until the end of April. There were so many warning signs, like her giving compliments to other men at the gym in front of me, and withholding affection, among other things. At the end of April, she intentionally pushed me away, saying that this is too difficult and that she needs time to figure herself out. I agreed that we needed healthy time apart, where neither of us would see anyone else. In the beginning of May, she ended up renting an Airbnb. She was hesitant to give me the address, but eventually did. One morning, as I drove by, I noticed her affair partner's truck parked a block away. It didn't come as a surprise. As I drove by, I saw her and the affair partner walking out of an alley toward his truck. I turned around and pulled up next to them. The affair partner was inside the truck, and she didn't have time to get in, so she hid by ducking down behind the tailgate. I rolled down my window and sarcastically said, "Real impressive you lasted one day on your own." I drove to the back of the truck, and she ran to the front, hiding by the hood, so I decided to leave and canceled her cell phone, which was under my plan. 2 days later, she arrives at the house with her bags packed, expressing that she's tired of living this shady lifestyle. I tell her that it's a good decision, but she's not welcome to stay here and suggest she stays at her stepdad's place. She agrees. On Mother's Day, she wants to do something as a family, but I disagree. A few hours later, she calls and invites me to a movie, and this time I agree. We all go back home, and after putting the kids to bed, I ask her to leave. However, she says she's tired and ends up falling asleep on the couch. Upstairs, I spot her old cell phone on the table and decide to go through it. Finally, I find evidence in pictures and messages confirming the affair. I wake her up and confront her about it. She becomes furious, and long story short, the police are called, and she gets arrested and charged with an offense at 1 a.m. We have no contact for 3 weeks, and she's not allowed to visit the home. Eventually, the charges are dropped due to lies on her police report. She wants to meet, and despite my hesitation, I agree. She expresses a desire to work on things, and seeing her in such a mess, I interpret it as a sign of genuine remorse. I rent my own place for 5 days, but end up moving back home on the 5th day around May 29th. In mid-June, things are okay, but not great. Communication has improved significantly, but there's absolutely no closeness, not even a kiss. She still has a password on her phone that I don't know. One morning while we're in bed, her phone rings at 6 a.m., and she tells me it's her affair partner. She claimed to have blocked him, then unblocked him. Fed up with the situation, I threatened to leave, and she agrees to block him again. I already have all the legal separation paperwork prepared at this point. One night, we have a fire in the backyard. She goes to a neighbor's house for a glass of wine and returns a few hours later. For the first time in years, I try to dance with her outside and kiss her, but she pulls away. I'm confused and frustrated. I try to get close to her later that night, but it goes so poorly that I end up sleeping downstairs. The next day, she forgets her phone, and I slide down the screen but can't unlock it. However, I see an email notification from her AP. It feels like another betrayal. I confront her, and she lies, saying she didn't message him and that he must have somehow obtained her email. I go downstairs, open her email, and read the entire conversation that has been happening behind my back for days. I show it to her, and she breaks down. I tell her that I'm filing for divorce the next day, and then I leave. She keeps calling me repeatedly, 15 times in the next hour, but I choose not to answer. She also sends me texts, begging me to come home because she's having a breakdown. After several hours, I finally return home. While I'm there, she calls her affair partner, AP, and tells him that it's over between them. The AP then has the audacity to ask for my blessing to pursue a relationship with her if things don't work out between us. I can't help but laugh at the absurdity of it, and she hangs up the phone. From mid-June to July, she starts making some changes and becomes more positive, reassuring me that she's committed to our relationship for the long term. She mentions that it might take years to reach the place we envision. In order to be with my family every night, I quit my job on the road and take up a new position. I start my new job on July 25th, but she pushes me away once again. During a walk, she tells me that it's not working and doubts that we can achieve our goals. However, she never mentions wanting to separate or get a divorce. We had a wedding of our friends to attend that weekend, but due to my new work schedule, I couldn't make it. Despite this, she reaches out to her AP again and spends the next 3 days with him after the wedding. At this point, I decide to file the necessary paperwork. In August, she is served with the divorce papers, and I list our home for sale. Surprisingly, the house is sold within a month, and the possession date is included in the deal. We also sign a separation agreement this week. In the past few months, I found myself in a much better place after freeing myself from this madness that I brought upon myself by trying everything to help this woman. However, she's not the same person I married 12 years ago, and unfortunately, it has all come at my expense. Despite people warning me that she would do it again, I didn't want to believe it. But deep down, I knew it would happen. The kids are adjusting well to their new home with me in shared custody, and I make sure to give them my time and attention whenever they need it. She's no longer with her affair partner, and apparently he's heartbroken about it. Recently, she tells me that I'm a great man, a great provider, husband, and father, qualities she's looking for. She acknowledges that she won't find another man who can offer even 50% of what I have, but she admits that she's not attracted to me. However, she hasn't completely ruled out the possibility of getting back together someday. Moving forward, I can live with the knowledge that I did everything possible to work on our family, but she did not. That's something she will carry with her until the end. Second story, me, 31M, and my wife, 29F, welcomed our baby last December, but the birth was tough, and my wife ended up experiencing postpartum depression. Originally, she planned to return to work after giving birth, but her struggles have made us rethink that decision. We decided to wait until our daughter turns 1 and then reassess the situation. My wife has been attending therapy sessions on a weekly basis to help with her recovery. Since she's at home full-time now, I've had to increase my work hours. We had discussed this before making the decision, and she understood the situation from the beginning. A few weeks ago, my boss approached me about a project that required a significant amount of overtime in a short period. It had great financial and career prospects. I talked to my wife about it, and she agreed that I should accept the opportunity. During the 4 weeks I'd be occupied with the project, my mother-in-law and her best friend Jessie, 29F, would come over to help with some of the tasks that I usually handle. Jessie is a stay-at-home mom with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. She started coming over during the day to assist my wife in taking care of the kids. As the project progressed, it became evident that we needed a few more weeks to complete it. I discussed this with my wife when I got home that night, and she said she was fine with it. However, in the following days, she became distant and cold. Given her behavior over the past few months, I didn't think too much about it and tried not to take it personally. During the final week of the project, I arrived home one night and noticed that Jessie was still there. I didn't pay much attention to it, greeted her and my wife, and went to check on our daughter. But before I could reach her room, I overheard Jessie saying something like, "He doesn't even bother to say hello to you. That's definitely a sign." I turned around and asked what it was supposed to be a sign of. My wife immediately started crying, and Jessie accused me of having an affair. She claimed that I must hate my wife because of her postpartum depression and that I'm not attracted to her anymore because she gained weight during pregnancy. None of these accusations are true. I am doing my best to support my wife through her postpartum depression and take care of our family. I think she looks great just the way she is, and I haven't pressured her for closeness. Then, Jessie insisted on seeing my phone. I refused. She said that refusing was a sign of guilt. I told my wife that if she wanted to see my phone, she could. She nodded, and something inside me shattered. I guess the realization that she actually believed I was having an affair deeply affected me. It hurt to think that she didn't trust me after everything we've been through. Well, she went through my phone and found nothing incriminating. Jessie started accusing me of deleting the evidence. She began screaming and woke up our daughter, so I told her to leave the house. Eventually, she left, and I went to comfort our daughter while my wife was still on the couch crying. Once our daughter fell back asleep, I sat down next to my wife and tried to talk to her about what had been happening. She told me that she had been worried ever since I started working overtime. I reminded her that we had discussed what a great opportunity it was, and she agreed that I should take on the project. She found it suspicious that the project's duration was extended. I explained that sometimes projects take longer than anticipated. She wanted more evidence, so I showed her messages and emails from work with timestamps and pay stubs showing the overtime pay. She said she believed me and apologized for doubting me. She admitted that Jessie had been convincing her that these were all signs of me cheating. I asked her why she trusted Jessie more than me, and why she didn't come to me with her concerns. She couldn't give a proper answer. It's been a couple of weeks since the project ended. I actually reduced my workload, and am trying to work a bit less than before so I can have more time with my wife and daughter. However, I feel completely exhausted from trying to do everything and starting to feel resentful Because deep down, I know that my wife doesn't trust me. I keep wondering what will happen the next time I have a project, or if I need to run errands one day, or if I have a business trip. Will I always come back to accusations of cheating? I've tried bringing up my concerns a couple of times, but my wife always says it's not the right time and that she's tired or feeling sad. I try to be considerate of her emotions, but I can't help but wonder if that means I can never address my own feelings. I'm really unsure about what to do in this situation. Do you have any advice on how I can move forward? Update. That night, I talked to my wife and let her know that I was planning to find a therapist. I didn't bring up her accusations or anything like that. I simply explained that I was going through a tough time and needed professional help. Her response was indifferent. She just shrugged and told me to do whatever. The next day, when I came home from work, I found our bedroom and my home office in complete disarray. Things were scattered everywhere, and important documents were thrown around. I couldn't find my wife, but our daughter was in her room crying. My wife had left her alone, and her cell phone was turned off. I tried calling my in-laws and a few friends, but no one had seen her. I started getting worried and decided to reach out to my mom, asking if she could babysit while I went out to search for my wife. Before my mom could get home, my wife returned with Jessie driving. Jessie didn't come inside the house because she hasn't been back since I kicked her out due to her being offended by my actions, but my wife did come in. It was clear that she was upset and had been crying. I asked her what had happened, initially thinking that maybe our house had been robbed, but then she started screaming at me, accusing me of being unfaithful and claiming that therapy was just a cover-up for me to meet my supposed mistress. I tried to calm her down and assure her that it wasn't true, but she came at me and ended up hitting me. My nose got broken. After realizing what she had done, she sat down on the couch and went into a kind of trance, just staring at the wall. I went into my daughter's room, locked the door, and called my mom to let her know what had happened. She was already on her way. I also called my mother-in-law and asked her to come over and take care of my wife. I packed a bag for my daughter, and when my mom arrived, we left. My wife didn't even look up. We dropped off my daughter with my dad, and then went to urgent care to have my nose checked. I got blood all over my mom's new Subaru in the process. My daughter and I are currently staying with my parents, while my wife is staying with her own parents. I'm looking into obtaining a restraining order against Jessie, who has caused harm and poses a potential threat. My wife and I have decided to separate. I still love her, but I cannot live with someone who hurts me and could potentially harm our daughter. I'm not proceeding with a divorce at this point, hoping that my wife will seek the necessary treatment and that we can work things out. My in-laws mentioned the possibility of inpatient treatment at a local hospital. Nonetheless, I have made sure to document everything thoroughly in case a custody battle arises in the future. It breaks my heart because I know this isn't the person I married. It's an illness affecting her mind. However, I must prioritize the safety of both myself and our daughter and give my wife the space she needs to recover. I truly hope that this is the right decision. Edit. After reading your comments, I had a discussion with my parents, and we concluded that, for the protection of my daughter, I need to file a police report. I'm on my way to the